Hello, hello. This is the My Heart Attack episode number 3222. Today's date is 30th of January 2025. It's been almost like night at 10 p.m. All right. Okay, we directly jumped into the question. Let's go. Okay, yeah. All right. Question is, how do you think art can inspire scientific discovery? Oh, yeah. How art can inspire the scientific discovery? How is this thing? Okay, yeah. Okay, first of all, what is exactly is this question? Okay, yeah, is this question is actually like couple of days ago I was actually watching The Demons of Leonardo. It's a web series, by the way, which is actually based on Leonardo da Vinci. Uh, while I was watching these web shows, I was kind of like somebody inspired by uh, Leonardo da Vinci thought process. The how does he think and how does he, yeah. So I want like Leonardo da Vinci. So how do I supposed to think like Leonardo da Vinci? What should I supposed to do? So I went to the chat GPT and I asked that he suggest me such a question so that I would think like Leonardo da Vinci. Okay, yeah. And this is one of those questions. Okay, yeah. Which is the question is that can art can inspire the scientific discovery? How art can inspire the scientific discovery? So basically, art and scientific discoveries are associated with the Leonardo da Vinci already. Yeah. So yeah, let's give this a particular answer. Okay, how do I supposed to be art will kind of like inspire the scientific discovery? How this thing is actually happened? Okay, first of all, let's try to like first of all now if I'm giving this proper answer regarding about this question, I have to be understand regarding about couple of things. Okay, yeah. First of all is that we are humans. Okay, yeah. And we have kind of like a something very incredible thing that is called mind. Okay, yeah. And we could think. Okay, yeah, we could think about stuff. I don't know, but probably other species could think. I don't know. Okay, might be, I'm not really sure, but probably is this thing that humans are kind of like a some species that they could think. Okay, and this is kind of like a something one of the greatest power of the human. Okay, yeah, because when we think, we think about a lot of stuff. We visualize stuff. We thought about our past experience, future prediction, and we think about what we're gonna do something really great or not. Okay, yeah, it's a kind of like a something the gift that we have, which is actually given to the universe, which is really incredible. Okay, and because of this thing, because of the mind that we have, we are actually build this world. Okay, and we will be build something really even more bigger worlds. All right, yeah. Now I'm just kind of like a something try to associate how does art will kind of like a something inspire scientific discoveries. Okay, yeah. So, have you watched Back to the Future, Back to the Future 1, Back to the Future 2, Back to the Future 3? Okay, yeah. In this movie, it's actually Hollywood movie by the way, which is actually released on 1980. I'm not really sure, yeah, but it's a really iconic movie by the way. Okay, yeah. In this movie, they actually represent some sort of stuff. Okay, regarding about that car. Okay, yeah, that flying car. Okay, yeah, then hoverboards. Okay, yeah, that hoverboards, like basically in the Back to the Future 2, they went to the future, and basically in the future they are not skating, they are kind of like a something hoverboard. It's a hoverboard is a kind of like a something that a board which is kind of like a look like a skates, but it doesn't really have any wheel. It just hover at its own place. Okay, yeah, it has some sort of propeller. I don't know what is at least this thing, but it hover. So which is really incredible thing. Okay, yeah, and I am been really inspired by this hoverboard. Okay, and basically just think that ki might be someday someone will gonna kind of like a something make something exactly like a hoverboard, or kind of like a equivalent to look like a hoverboard, or kind of like a equivalent to be kind of like a something do some sort of such a purpose as a hoverboard. Okay, is that thing is available in this world? Yes, it is available right now. It's not kind of like a something available in mass market. It's a kind of like a something initial level of technology. In that initial level technology, I seen there is a guy who is actually on the drone. Okay, yeah, basically it's a kind of like a something drone which is almost like a 4 5 feet. Okay, yeah, which has kind of like a lots of propeller. Okay, yeah, which can carry the weight of human as also the battery include of that particular drone. Okay, yeah, and this guy could fly that particular drone, which is kind of like a something very insane. Okay, yeah, when I see, and this is actually real, by the way. I'm not kind of like a bluffing. You just kind of like a Google it, like there is a man on top of the drone. You could Google it. I'm not really sure the exact name of that particular guy, but he is that guy who's kind of like a uploading some of the content on Instagram platform regarding about do such a stunt. Okay, like he was actually at top of the drone and he was actually doing it. That, by the way, that drone was completely made by himself, a completely DIY project. Okay, and he could do kind of like a something programming and stuff like that, so that that drone could carry the weight of that person and as well as the battery of that drone too. Okay, so which is really incredible. So basically is this thing, the movie is a kind of like a something the art form. Okay, yeah, which is actually released on the 1983, the Back to the Future. Okay, yeah, which is actually released on 1983 or 1985, I'm not really sure. Yeah, but right now these are exist. Okay, these are kind of like a something the drone guy is kind of like a something exist in here. Okay, yeah, so yeah, basically is this thing, those are kind of like a something arts are kind of like a something inspired to do some sort of scientific discoveries. Okay, yeah, basically it's a scientific discovery na. It's kind of like a some initial phase. Like I'm not really associate with only this movie, no, nothing really at all, but we have kind of like a some sort of concept. Okay, like we have kind of like a concept that flying cars. Okay, yeah, that in the future we will not gonna drive, we will fly the car. Okay, yeah, that future is not come to the aid come came here right now, but like in the future might be we will gonna have kind of like a something like the something like I'm not really sure that flying car would be kind of like a something will gonna exist in the future. I'm not really sure. Okay, yeah, I think flying car would be like it takes almost like maybe another century it really required, because we are not kind of like have that much technology to fly some certain vehicle on the air. Okay, yeah, because it really required a lot of battery capacity. Okay, yeah, like okay, do you understand why aeroplane are kind of like a so huge? Because of that they are not carrying the weight of the passenger, they are carrying the weight of itself. Okay, yeah, and in the end like like a most of the fuel are actually consumed because of carrying the weight of the plane, not for the passenger. Okay, yeah, so basically that's why kind of like simply all those are flying vehicles that we exist today are so big. Okay, yeah, and if we are kind of like a think like flying cars, so that means we need a kind of like a something such a source which is kind of like a something so small but so powerful. Right now we don't really have that source, so it will take time to figure it out, that source, and maybe it will take almost like a maybe centuries, and then after that we might gonna have flying cars. But at this time it's not available. Okay, yeah. But still, what I'm trying to tell you is this thing, that those are kind of like some this art form which kind of like something inspired to inspired to kind of like a something scientific discovery. Okay, yeah. Which is not actually happened at this moment. No, it's actually happened since the beginning of the human. Okay, example. Okay, let's talk about this Leonardo. Okay, basically the question is actually originated from the Leonardo thought process. So let's come to that era. Okay, so Leonardo person is a kind of like a somebody very creative person. Okay, yeah. As well as he was really enthusiastic regarding about scientific stuff too. He was kind of like a thinking very analytically, and as also he thinks very kind of like a in image perspective. Okay, how it exactly look like. Okay, yeah. What do you mean by that? It means by that if we draw the circle. Okay, yeah. If we draw the circle and we are kind of like looking at from the top view, it look like circle. We are looking at from bottom view, it look like circle. Is nothing really at all. But when we kind of like have that circle in 3D, it doesn't look like circle, it looks sphere. Do you get it? Okay, yeah. Right now this kind of like a some very common example, and everyone knows that ki, like basically when we hold circle in a 3D object, it doesn't look circle, it looks sphere, right? Yeah, because of shadows and things like that, we could differentiate which side is above, which side is back, so we are differentiate, it's a sphere. Okay, right now it's a kind of like something very common and everyone knows that. But at the era of Leonardo, that means 500 year ago, which is kind of like a something very uncommon. Okay, yeah, like they didn't really know how is exactly look like or something like that, because at that time education and getting to know about all those stuff are kind of like a something very non-existence. Okay, do you get it? Another thing is that ki, humans are always bitterly inspired by the birds. Okay, yeah, how the birds could fly in the air. Okay, humans have always have kind of like a tendency to fly in the air, but it's just like that ki we won't be able to fly. Okay, like basically our entire human existence, we are flying for almost like a 200 year before, like a 200 years. Okay, before that we just wanted to be fly, but we can't. Okay, we can't. Okay, we just do lot of kind of like some sketches and things like that. We try to improve everything. We draw some sort of kind of like some equipment. Even Leonardo create kind of like a some bird like shaped wings and try to create, as also like some people are kind of like a create a kite, a big kite, so that we could kind of like a fly in the air, something like that. Okay, yeah. But one of the important purpose of flying is a transportation. Okay, yeah, like basically human wants to fly just because of that they want to transport from one place to another place without touching any ground. Okay, yeah. All those kites and birds experiment that they pull off is kind of like a something they fly for some certain time, but it's not kind of like a something for meant for mass production, or it's not meant for kind of like a something do such a thing. And as also safety is also bitterly hampered too, because when someone fly on that particular stuff, might be they will not gonna survive, or like a survival chances is almost like a 50-50%. Okay, yeah. But yeah, they actually inspired from the how the birds are actually try to fly, and they actually create that particular replica of that. The humans are try to create the wings and lots of stuff and stuff like that. And yeah, basically is this thing, our thought process are kind of like a creating particular art, and that art would kind of like some help you to create the scientific discovery, and which is really incredible, by the way, which is kind of like a something that key amaze, really amazing things. Okay, yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna tell you is this thing that key, can art will kind of like a something something really inspired the scientific discovery. Definitely, it's a lot. Okay, yeah. There are a couple of pointers are here. I'm gonna go through that. Visualization, complex idea. All right, yeah. As I mentioned earlier, when we think about particular stuff, we think about kind of like a something basic things. Okay, yeah. We try to, first of all, like just kind of like a visualizing things, what is actually best or not. Okay, okay, example. If you don't really understand, let's just example that key. Applying brakes. Okay, applying brakes. Okay, yeah. So basically is this thing, applying brakes is a, it's a very complex topic, by the way. and it's very difficult to explain this thing. All right, yeah. Okay, what is actually the visualization thing? If I could visualize and completely art form, I don't know. It's like as I mentioned earlier, now it's a kind of like a something same thing. Okay, like we visualize stuff and something like that. Okay, yeah. By the way, what is exactly is this point? Okay, okay, this point is actually it mentioned that art helps visualize concept that might be hand to grasp the words or number alone. For example, Leonardo da Vinci sketches the flying machine, as I mentioned earlier. The anatomy inspired advancement in the both aviation and medicine. Oh, that is really good. Okay, like basically the Leonardo was kind of like a did some sort of anatomy in it. What's the anatomy? Okay, yeah. Visualization. Okay, let's go to that point. Okay, let's understand this point. Okay, yeah. I'm talking about Leonardo da Vinci, almost like a 500 years ago. Leonardo da Vinci is a kind of like a something very curious person. He always wants to know what is actually human body work, how is actually human body work, how do we walk, how do we kind of like a run, how do we breathe, how do we do such a thing that like what is actually inside our body. Okay, yeah. And Da Vinci is kind of like always been curious regarding about what is actually inside our body. Okay, yeah. 500 year ago, kind of like a killing somebody is a kind of like a something very common, by the way, at that time. Okay, like in today's world, if we want to kill somebody, it's very hard, and as also it's a very illegal charges, and might be you will go into the jail. But 500 year ago, killing is a kind of like a something very common. Okay, like basically is this thing you just go and kill somebody and bring that body to the home. It's a kind of like something very common, and Leonardo does that. By the way, Leonardo doesn't really kill anyone. Okay, yeah. By the way, actually what is actually is this thing, Leonardo is actually went to the kind of like a something the Kabristan. Okay, what's the Kabristan? I don't know. Where dead bodies are kind of like a simply put inside the soil and things like that. I don't know. Yeah, this is the Kabristan. He bring that kind of like a simply corpse and do some sort of experiment. Okay, what does experiment he does? Okay, yeah. First of all, he wanted to visualize what is actually inside body look like. So what does it do? When the body came, he just tried to cut it down. Okay, yeah, cut it down, draw some sort of painting regarding about our chest. Chest, this, then heart, and then liver, and then kidney, and then legs, and the bone structure. He would kind of like a draw kind of like a such thing, and as also he mentioned in the notes too, which is kind of like a something very incredible, by the way, because like basically is this thing that he doing such a thing was kind of like a something illegal. Okay, at that time it is also really illegal, but as also it's also a bit really common too. Okay, yeah. Well, why illegal? Yeah, like basically like basically Leonardo was actually from Florence. Okay, yeah. And Florence was kind of like a something very religious place. Okay, regarding about killing and stuff like that, which is kind of like a something not associate with the close to the god and something like that. And some people are kind of like a believe that's a kind of like a something very wrong thing or stuff like that. Okay, yeah. But like basically 500 year ago, like wars and things like that are bitterly common. Okay, yeah. So at that time, getting the dead body is a kind of like a something that. Okay, yeah. So basically, what I'm trying to tell you is this thing that he Leonardo does that kind of like a such thing, that anatomy, that kind of like a somebody finding out this thing inside our body. No one does that, and Leonardo does it at the early level of human things, which is like a really incredible. And this kind of like a somebody visualize. Okay, like a basically he just kind of like a thing that he how is exactly breathe. Okay, yeah. There is a one thing that I understand regarding about Leonardo is that he wanted to kind of like a something try to understand why we breathe and how do we breathe and stuff like that. Okay, yeah. So what does he do? He just like find the dead body, bring it to the study table. Okay, cut down the entire body. Now like cut down that kind of like a something chest and basically put down the liver. Okay, yeah, which is actually connected to the nose and stuff like that. He would dissect that entire thing, that liver and the nose, and then like basically like it's a internal organ. Okay, yeah. And he just wanted to inflate that kind of like a somebody liver, or like a liver, not liver, sorry. What is actually is this thing? Fufus. Okay, yeah. It fufus is a Marathi word. Lungs, yeah, lungs, liver, yeah, lungs, yeah, lungs. Okay, yeah. So lungs like a basically when we exhale and inhale, lungs are kind of like a something expand and contract. Okay, yeah. By the way, we know all those things because of the scientific discovery throughout this thing happened, but at that time 500 years ago, this was kind of like a something just like kind of like a something very new thing. No one knows that what is actually lungs and what is actually is this thing and something like that. Okay, yeah. So what does he do? Leonardo just cut down the kind of like a something lungs. Okay, yeah, and kind of like a something breathes some sort of like he just kind of like a pull some sort of like he blows some sort of air and figure it out how the lungs would interact. Okay, yeah, he realized that when he blows some sort of air, the sizes of the lungs are kind of like something expand. Okay, yeah, and and basically when he released that, he just kind of like a contract. Okay, yeah. But one thing he realized that the air that he was kind of like a blowing some sort of air from that Anna Nalika. What's Anna Nalika? The kind of like a simply the veins which is actually connected to the nose and stuff like that. Okay, yeah. He was kind of like a blowing some sort of air from that vein to kind of like a lungs. Okay, yeah. The lungs are kind of like a something expand. Okay, but when he released that thing, the air will not kind of like a something came out. No, air will kind of like a went towards the heart and something like that. So he was kind of like a figure it out the airflow. Okay, like basically airflow is that ki when the air is actually went from lungs to heart, and then he figured it out heart. Okay, yeah. At that time heart was kind of like a something just undiscoverable. He don't know what is actually heart. Okay, there is nothing really at all. Okay, yeah. So basically is this thing that key there is a heart who has a kind of like a something, he dissect that heart, he figured it out there is a 4 chamber. Okay, yeah, and like basically just pump in. Okay, yeah. So basically is this thing what is actually is this that key he just blow some sort of air into the lungs. Okay, yeah. And right now he was kind of like a something close that wall. Okay, so here the air is actually in the lungs. Okay, yeah. So as kind of like a something when the heart is actually kind of like a something the lungs are expanded. Okay, yeah. So what does he do? He just kind of like a press the heart. Okay, yeah. Try to figure it out where it actually air from like a lungs to heart. So can kind of like a something heart can transfer air from heart to lung? Will it be possible? So he just pressed some sort of heart. Okay, then he realized that ki heart is also kind of like a something act as a pump. Okay, act as a pump. Okay, yeah. Then he realized that ki heart is a kind of like a something pump who is kind of like a something help to inhale and exhale. Okay, yeah, this is what kind of like a something happened. It's not kind of like a something nose that we kind of like a exhale and inhale. No, nose is kind of like a something just a kind of like a something just for outer protection. Okay, important thing is that is a heart. He realized that ki heart is a really essential kind of like a something organ who just pumps some sort of air. But at that time he don't really know about the blood, like a basically heart is also kind of like a pumping the blood throughout the entire body. He don't really knew that. Okay, he didn't really knew that. So he just tried to figure it out something like that. As also let me tell you one thing, Leonardo is a kind of like a somebody first person who is kind of like a something doing the surgery of blood donation. Okay, right now blood donation is kind of like a something very common thing. Okay, very common. Okay, yeah. But at that time 500 years ago, like a donating blood or kind of like a giving the blood from one body to another body, which kind of like a something very something that like no one does that. Like a basically it's a kind of like a something, I don't know, it's kind of like a something, it's completely a lone alien concept. Okay, it's a very alien concept. Okay, yeah. Okay, why does alien concept? Okay, why, like basically from our point of perspective, it's a very common, like basically I'm giving to the blood to somebody, which is very common. By the way, because of that we know that this kind of like a something happened, it's a very common and this kind of like a stuff. Okay, yeah. But at that time giving the blood to the somebody which kind of like a something very like a very kind of like a new and very, it's a very kind of like a different thing probably, and most of people are kind of like a something just don't know. Okay, and at that time he knows that the experiment that he was doing, the people are not ready and people are kind of like a taking him in charges, and probably he will gonna live rest of the life is in a jail. So he realized that his experiment is kind of like a something not meant for at that time. He was kind of like consider that the experiment that he does is kind of like some help to the another future generation. So he was kind of like a taking precaution of that experiment and stuff like that. So he was actually doing such an experiment with very secretive place and no one knows about that stuff. Okay, by the way, let's talk about the blood donation. How does he do that? Okay, yeah. So basically he brought two bodies. Okay, yeah. human bodies, by the way. Okay, yeah. And now he realized that the color of the blood is red. Okay, yeah, as also the color of the blood is also red. Okay, both the body has a red color. Okay, yeah. Now, first of all, what does he do? He was try to figure it out what blood is kind of like something very different. Okay, yeah. At the beginning, it was kind of like a something very common, but when he tried to test, like a test means like he was kind of like a test means like that he just licked the blood. Okay, from one body he licked the blood. Blood feel little bit of salty, little bit of salty. Okay, he don't know what is actually this thing, but he just kind of like a feel little bit of salty. As also he kind of like a lick the another blood, it also feel little bit of soft, little bit of kind of like a something that salty. Okay, yeah. He was trying to figure it out that key can we kind of like a something transfer from one blood to another blood. Okay, yeah. Why? Because at that time now when the war is actually seeking, humans are kind of like a simply dying because of the loss of bloods, because like at that time killing and loss of the bloods were literally common, because most of people are kind of like have a knife, they just kill, and then basically if the loss of the blood happened, then people were gonna die. Okay, yeah. So he was always considered that ki if the blood is kind of like a something loss, then how do we supposed to gain that blood? Okay, and as also is this thing when we actually grow, blood is kind of like a something just like we will not drink blood. So where is this blood came from? He just wants to know that how does exactly blood is actually came from. Okay, because in his existence of entire life he haven't really seen any kind of like a something the liquid who is actually blood. No one is actually drink the blood actually. So where his blood came from, he was actually bitterly curious about that stuff. So what does he do? He was trying to figure it out that can we kind of like a something like that donate the blood from one body to another body. Okay, yeah. So what does he do? Okay, yeah. There is a kind of like a some weird experiment. Okay, yeah. Like I don't know, but I just read at somewhere on the YouTube videos. Maybe he did some sort of very like I don't know. Okay, yeah. First of all, what does he do? He can't really differentiate the blood streams. Okay, yeah. First of all, he killed the dog. Okay, yeah. The blood of the dog is red. Okay, then he killed the goat. The blood of the goat is red. Oh, he killed the beef. The blood of the beef is also red. Okay, yeah. He realized that blood is a kind of like a something very essential element for entire species. Okay, yeah. And it always be a red. He always be a red. Okay, yeah. He don't really realize that what if like we could kind of like simply transfer one blood from another, like basically from human blood to the dog's blood, and like a duck blood, or kind of like a goat blood or beef blood, and transfer from like basically all the blood are kind of like a look same, taste same, nothing really same, like everything is kind of like a something same. So might be it's a kind of like a something very crucial part of the living life. Okay, so he just tried to figure it out, that kind of like assembly blood. Okay, he did a lot of kind of like assembly experiment on multiple bloods. Okay, yeah, like a blood from human, blood from goat, blood from like a multiple species, and he was trying to figure it out what kind of like assembly interact with it. He was interact like he put iron in it, manganese in it, because at that time as also getting those kind of like assembly minerals are also literally kind of like a crazy, like at that time minerals are not available at that time. Okay, he was kind of like a doing that kind of like assembly experiment. He heated that blood, he cooled that blood, he did a lot of experiment on that particular stuff. Okay, then like basically is this thing, what is actually is this thing that there is a one experiment. Okay, I'm not really sure is it kind of like happened really, or I'm not really sure the information that I told you right now is right or not. Okay, yeah, but I just heard. Okay, that like there is a dead body. Okay, yeah, he bring that human dead body, then he bring the goat. Okay, yeah, goat is a living goat. Okay, yeah, what does he do is that he kind of like a something just try to cut the leg of the goat. Okay, yeah, he just cut the leg. Okay, yeah, and the goat was kind of like a something just kind of like a something screaming and something like that, but goat is not dying. Okay, goat is not dying. Okay, yeah. So he was kind of like a something figure it out that if we pull out all the blood from that goat and we kind of like simply put the blood again, that goat will survive or not. So what does he do? He just kind of like simply cut the leg of the goat. Okay, basically all the blood are kind of like simply scattered, okay, from that leg and stuff like that. By the way, he collect that blood, he never really kind of like simply scattered that blood away. No, he collect that blood at somewhere, at pot or somewhere. Okay, yeah. Then kind of like simply after some sort of time, goat are not screaming. Okay, yeah. He realized that might be goat will kind of like simply die. So he was kind of like putting the blood inside the goat through the veins. Okay, how does he did that? He kind of like a create particular injection. Right now we have that injection, like which bit really common by the way. But at that time he was kind of like a create such a thing that a kind of like somebody nozzle, and in that nozzle he put the blood and kind of like a pressing that blood, okay, inside the body. He did that thing, he did that thing to try to figure it out if the kind of like a simply let out all the blood and try to put all those blood again, will that goat gonna survive or not? Okay, that goat will not survive. Okay, yeah. Why? Because obviously you understand na, this thing, because of that this procedure really required a very very critical thing. As also is this thing, when we are putting the blood, we are make sure that air should not supposed to be go inside that thing. Okay, yeah, because when the air get inside that veins, then probably it will gonna explode and things like that. At that time Da Vinci didn't really knew that, and he was kind of like a putting lot of air inside the vein throughout this blood, things like that, and it was like a really horrific experiment. Like a basically this thing, Leonardo dissection process was kind of like a something very, it's not brutal, but it's a kind of like a something, the curiosity point of perspective, he was kind of like a doing such a thing, which is like a really crazy. Really crazy. By the way, it's like I don't know, regarding about the blood transfusion. Okay, yeah. He was kind of like a somebody realized that ki blood is a really essential element in human, in the existence of life. Okay, yeah. So basically another thing is that he kind of like a somebody another buy some sort of another goat or things like that. Okay, yeah. He cut down the some sort of part, okay, not the entire organ. He cut down the skin and let it out the blood. Okay, yeah. And after let it out the blood, almost like a maybe 2 hour, and then he sealed the kind of like some the skin. Okay, yeah. By the way, that goat is screaming, he's not dead, but after some sort of time that goat is kind of like a somebody regain the blood itself, which is kind of like a somebody very crazy that ki like a just couple of hour ago he was kind of like a kind of like a somebody cut down the some sort of stuff and remove some sort of little bit of blood and something like that. And then after kind of like a couple of days he was seal that thing, and then goat will kind of like a regain the blood itself, and goat will kind of like a something try to scream and try to, like it's kind of like a somebody giving the giving the kind of like a something existence of that living of the goat. Okay, because he was trying to figure it out, if I remove that particular blood, then where the blood is actually came from, where his blood came from. Then he realized that blood is a kind of like a things that a living organism actually create inside by itself. Okay, yeah. Then he realized that the blood is kind of like something liquid. Okay, yeah. So we are not drinking the blood, but actually we drink the water. So basically water is a kind of like something very essential element to kind of like a something to create the blood. Okay, yeah. So what does he do is that he bought another goat. Okay, yeah. And he never let that goat drink water, nothing really at all, for almost like a week. That goat, he didn't really drink anything, he didn't really ate anything, nothing really at all. Okay, yeah. He just did that particular experiment. Now he kind of like a do same experiment. He cut down particular stuff, let out some sort of blood, let out some sort of blood from that body, from the goat's body. And after some sort of that, he just seal that particular stuff when it cut that, and try to kind of like observe that that goat will gonna survive or not. Because last time that goat will survive, like after some sort of time, that goat will kind of like regain the blood itself. But in this time, that goat haven't really drink any of those water for almost like a past couple of weeks. So probably this goat definitely gonna die. Okay, yeah, he was trying to observe that thing, and definitely that goat will die. So that means he realized that the water is a kind of like a something very essential element to drink, to create the blood. Okay, yeah, to create the blood, and we actually drink the water a lot. So probably water is a kind of like a something very essential element to be kind of like a something the something to create the blood. Okay, yeah. So he realized that, and then he kind of like thought that what if we put the inside the, what if instead of blood, what if we put the water inside it, will it gonna work or not? He did a so crazy experiment, dude. Like, I don't know how do I supposed to say this thing. He did like a really crazy experiment. Okay, yeah. Also also the information that I told you right now, it's still, I don't know. Okay, I just heard at somewhere. I am not really. I haven't really. I just heard at somewhere, maybe at some sort of YouTube videos and something like that. Probably when I heard that, I realized that it's a fake. Maybe, yeah, it's a fake. Okay, who does that? But if I'm thinking from Leonardo's point of perspective, the curiosity point of perspective, I might gonna do such thing like that. If I don't know about, if I found out that blood is a kind of like something very important thing for the human existence or any living existence, so I'm gonna do that particular experiment. I'm gonna do figure it out that might be that blood is a kind of like a something good or not, or is it kind of like a something very essential or not, something like that. So yeah. Okay, dude. So coming back to the question, okay, the question was that how can art is kind of like a simply inspire the scientific discoveries, dude. I don't know, it's a lot. Like a basically this thing, art, visualization, thought process are really inspired, really inspired to the scientific discoveries. Okay, yeah. Like as I'm gonna take another example is that key Interstellar movie, as I like this kind of like some example I talk in the last question. In the Interstellar movie, they actually kind of like represent the black hole, but a black hole was not really actually exist when the movie was released. Okay, yeah. But it kind of like giving the kind of like some exact visual perspective about how the black hole looked like. And after 5 year, we have kind of like a something accurate we have kind of like a photo of black hole, which is kind of like something in the movie, which is kind of like 100% accurate representation of the black hole. So yeah, art form is a kind of like a something really inspired of scientific discovery. Okay, yeah, try to figure it out. We just always want to know, because art form is a kind of like a something giving us some sort of image which might be kind of like a look like this or look like that. Okay, yeah. When we have that particular visualization thing which is not actually kind of like something accurate, but we inspired, and when we have inspired, we try to create that particular thing. Okay, yeah. Like basically is this thing, when we see the sun, when we see the sky, we actually see a lot of stars. Okay, and we figure it out that stars might be kind of like something very different, something really very far away, something really kind of like a stars, I don't know, yeah. But when we look at the sky, we kind of like realize that it's a kind of like a something vast universe, and we are kind of like something very tiny, and we are kind of like creating particular visualization thing regarding about stars, that what if kind of like that star look like this or look like that. And because of we visualize that thing, right now we are kind of like chasing those stars, and we find those stars. We found that the Venus, Jupiter, Sun, Moon, everything, because of kind of like a something the curiosity that we have looking at the sky from the beginning of the human existence. So yes, art form and kind of like a something inspired all the time to improve the scientific discovery. Not only improve, but kind of like a seek the scientific discovery, try to figure it out. It kind of like a create the curiosity inside it. It kind of like a simply born the curiosity inside it. So yes, art form is a kind of like a simply always inspired scientific discoveries. All right, yeah. All right, I should supposed to be end here. This is it. Thank you.